After the war in Ukraine started, the situation has been getting more and more tense around China and Taiwan. Is China going to finally attack Taiwan and follow up on its one China principle which says that there is only one China and Taiwan is part of that one China, only but a rebellious island to be reunited with the mainland China. It has always been in the interest of the Communist Party of China to reunite Taiwan with the mainland. They have talked about it since the Kuomintang fled to Taiwan in 1949. The chairman Xi Jinping right now has made it his personal goal to reunite Taiwan with China. Tensions were at an all-time high when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, being the highest United States official to visit Taiwan in 20 years. At the time of Nancy Pelosi's visit, the PLA or People's Liberation Army of mainland China conducted these huge, unprecedented military drills, leading many people to believe that invasion is just around the corner. But if you look at interviews with Taiwanese people, they are really used to this kind of stuff. They're used to their communist neighbor always flexing, always threatening them, intimidating. They have adapted to live like that. You cannot live in fear, so they have adapted not to feel the fear anymore. They're used to it. And if you are used to it, you cannot be intimidated by it. The Chinese Communist Party is taking the One China principle incredibly serious. Any country or company even who is undermining the One China principle, for example, opening Taiwanese embassy on their soil, inviting Taiwanese officials to their country, this company or country is immediately under Chinese boycott. They immediately get a response from China. This recently happened to Lithuania. I am from Estonia, then we have Latvia, and Lithuania is the third Baltic brother. They're worlds away from each other, but they had this back and forth because Lithuania had something to say about the independence of Taiwan. China will react to these kind of things. In this video, I want to go into reasons why China, mainland China, cannot invade Taiwan. I will bring out 4 reasons for you and explain them. My name is Artur Rehi. I'll bring you news from Ukraine and news from all over the world. So if you like my channel, my videos, subscribe to my channel and become a patron. Links in the description below. The first reason why China cannot invade Taiwan is semiconductors. Some call it the new oil of the digital age. Taiwan is the world's largest producer of semiconductors and microchips. TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is the world's largest and most advanced chip maker. Taiwan, a single country, has over 50% of world's market share of semiconductors, including chips made for Apple products. You possibly have a phone in your pocket right now that has Taiwanese parts in it. If China would attack Taiwan, they would possibly blockade the island. That would cause substantial interruptions in the global supply chain. The world is already suffering from the shortage of microchips. We all know about the drama in the car industry. The cars are getting more expensive because microchips are getting more expensive. Video cards, laptops, computers, refrigerators, medical equipment, and not to mention most modern military technology. All of these things need constant supply of microchips, most of which come from Taiwan. And this is not mentioning the COVID pandemic, which slowed down the production of microchips, already disrupting the global supply chain. If we're talking about the invasion of Taiwan, this would only further exacerbate the issue. And China, like other countries, relies heavily on microchips produced in Taiwan. So the CCP would have to think twice before doing anything that might damage Taiwan's manufacturing capacity, because they would suffer from it too. And China, mainland China, actually produces only 5% of the global share of microchips, so they do need Taiwanese chips. If China were to invade Taiwan, I think they would do it in a time when they are more self-sufficient about the production of microchips. As of now, they're fully dependent on Taiwanese chips, therefore making the invasion very unlikely. There is a list of world countries, most powerful countries in the world, who are very dependent on Taiwanese microchips and would have something to say about China taking these chips away from them, so they would be immediately dragged into this conflict. The CCP knows this very well. The second reason why China cannot invade Taiwan right now is Chinese economic and property crisis. China has seen massive, unbelievably massive growth in the last decades, going from being a simple agricultural society into a industrial juggernaut rivaling United States. But recently, Chinese growth shrank for the very first time in 28 years. The CCP has taken an incredibly harsh approach to the COVID pandemic. They are trying to suffocate it. City with millions of people might only have a few hundred cases and the CCP will put that city in a lockdown. They will shut the entire city down until these cases are gone. But that means they also shut the production down. The CCP's incredibly harsh reaction to the COVID pandemic is the contributor to China's slow growth. But COVID is not the only issue in China's economical situation. China's property market is on the verge of collapse. China's economic output is very heavily tilted to the property sector. It covers 1/3 of the entire economic output. We have all heard about Evergrande, the biggest Chinese real estate company. They have already missed their foreign debt payments. I mean, last year Evergrande defaulted on 300 billion USD worth of debt. And there's a real risk that other companies may follow suit. Real estate amounts up to 2/3 of personal wealth in China. And China is very unique because home buyers and investors will pay in advance for unfinished projects. They will give the money to the real estate company and the real estate company gives them the promises that they will finish the project they just paid for. But it's a Ponzi scheme. The real estate company actually uses that money they just received to open up new projects to sell them out before they finish them. But if they stop finding new clients, if the money stops coming into the system, the entire pyramid collapses. And this is what we're seeing right now. A lot of unfinished projects which have been paid for by the investors or the home buyers already. Due to COVID, mismanagement and corruption, a lot of big real estate companies have failed to meet their obligations, leaving major development projects unfinished. In short terms, they have failed to finish the apartment you paid for. You're not gonna get your money back and you're not gonna get the apartment. That's the situation in China right now with real estate. This has led to public protests and mortgage boycotts, forcing the CCP to step in and pick up the financial burden. The collapse of China's property market would be catastrophic for its economy. Furthermore, because of China's observance of the decades-long one-child policy, a lot of soldiers in the People's Liberation Army are a single child. Male children have always been favored in China because they carry on the family name. Going to war with this army filled with single children risks a lot of families losing their bloodline and family name. Another issue with this is the aging population. The younger population of China, who are supposed to support the elderly population, they are numerically much fewer because they were born of the time of the one-child policy in China, and these single children have to support the numerically larger group of elderly people. Although reuniting Taiwan with the mainland China is CCP's political priority, they are very much unlikely to use lethal force to do so. They would pay for it with their economic prosperity. After all, it is the economic prosperity and the increase in personal wealth that the average Chinese citizen accepts in exchange for losing some of their personal freedoms to an authoritarian regime. It's like this silent deal they have. The Chinese people place their trust in the CCP and expect the CCP to solve any crisis, continue the growth of their personal wealth, and maintain the status of the nation as major player in the world stage. Reason number 3 why China cannot invade Taiwan. External threats. China is a bad boy. They have maritime and territorial disputes with 16 different countries. The Philippines, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, Singapore, Brunei, Nepal, Bhutan, Laos, Malaysia, Mongolia, Myanmar, and Tibet. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Every country that borders China, they have border disputes with. Any move on Taiwan would cause alarm amongst these nations and result in military buildup along the Chinese border. Japan is viewing the defense of Taiwan as integral to its own domestic and international security. Japan is definitely likely to get directly involved in the conflict. Not to mention the other allied non-Asian nations like USA, UK, Australia. Taking into consideration all of these factors, it is very unlikely China would take such a risk not knowing which nations would come to Taiwan's aid. And after seeing the world's reaction to Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, China has some idea of what might be coming after the invasion, and it doesn't look good. Reason number 4 why it is incredibly difficult for China to invade Taiwan is Taiwan's natural defenses. In any invasion, weather and terrain are critical factors, and Taiwan's natural environment is perhaps its best defense. The coastline is incredibly rough and rigid. Very often there are incredibly strong torrential storms and rains, very strong tides. All of these things are definitely a significant deterrent to the would-be invader. The west coast of Taiwan is made out of these huge mudflats that spread 2 to 5 miles out to the sea. If a landing force would get stuck in that mud, Taiwanese artillery would make short work of them. The tides rise and drop considerably, and low tides expose these huge wide areas of mud which are almost impossible to traverse. This leaves very few suitable landing spots available for the invaders, and the Taiwanese army is well aware of these spots, and these spots are heavily fortified, heavily defended. They would be kill boxes. The Taiwanese Strait is about 100 miles wide, and it would take up to 10 hours to transit. Transport ships and boats crossing the Taiwanese Strait would be sitting ducks to Taiwanese artillery and anti-ship missiles. Moreover, these are very stormy seas, and Taiwan has 2 typhoon seasons. This limits the possible time of the invasion to only 2 times per year when the conditions are favorable. And any troops that would make this treacherous crossing would be incredibly seasick and more worried about not puking all over the place than actual fighting. And after that, they would have to subdue a mountainous nation of 24 million people who are ready to defend their democratic values and freedom. And we have not even talked about the fact that Taiwan has modern weaponry. Taiwan possesses the latest high-tech weaponry there is in the world. Their military is not a pushover. Xi Jinping has a lot on his plate, trying to push down these protests, maintain this zero-COVID policy, fix the Chinese economical situation with the property sector. It is incredibly unlikely that he would commence an invasion over 100 miles of incredibly stormy seas. The scale of the attack would be much more complex and dangerous than the D-Day, and would require a lot more soldiers. All this together and the unpredictability of war would be a recipe for disaster for the CCP. They would not risk such an endeavor before getting their house in order. And that's a mess. While the cost of success would be limited, Taiwan's infrastructure and semiconductor industry would be ruined entirely. China's international relationships, trade agreements, investment opportunities would all be devastated. After witnessing the unified Western response to Russia after they invaded Ukraine, the CCP is well aware of the consequences of the invasion or even a blockade. For the time being, China will continue intimidating and pressuring Taiwan. For them, the best course of action would be to try to reunite Taiwan with mainland China through peaceful means. What the CCP fails to understand is the more pressure they put on Taiwan, the more Taiwanese people want to fight back and defend their way of life and democratic freedoms. Although an invasion is incredibly unlikely, the Russo-Ukrainian war shows us that anything is possible. Few people believe that Russia would actually invade Ukraine, and few people believe that Ukraine would actually be able to defend themselves. The international community must show a united front against China and not give in to Chinese unreasonable demands. And moreover, they must continue supporting Taiwan. Taiwan, like Ukraine, is not alone in this. My friends, this was my video about the possibility of invasion. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. If you like these videos, then please subscribe to the channel and become a patron. Link is in the description below. I really thank you for watching, and until my next video, stay cool, my friends. Bye bye.